They never saw the fire inside you, not because it wasn't burning, but because they were too busy trying to put it out. They mistook your quiet moments for surrender, your pauses for weakness, your silence for a burial of your potential. They thought you were done, finished, another name swallowed by failure, another story that ends before it ever begins, and you let them believe it not because you were defeated, but because you understood that every rebirth requires darkness, stillness, and distance. You understood that the world doesn't respect people who speak too early. The world respects those who return when no one expected them to. It's strange how people celebrate your downfall with more enthusiasm than your victories. They watched you crumble and smiled. They saw you break and whispered. They saw you fall and assumed you would never get back up. They took your struggles personally, as if your pain was entertainment and your setbacks were proof of their superiority. They created their own prophecy about you that you would remain small, weak, invisible, that whatever power you once had was gone forever, but you were not broken. You were writing yourself in a language only you could understand. Because what they didn't know was that the ground you fell on didn't bury you. It grew you, it made you quiet, yes but not silent. It made you still, yes but not dead. It made you disappear, yes but only so you could return in a different form entirely. Your fall was not the end of your story. It was the part where the world loses track of you long enough for you to build the strength they swore you didn't have. Your absence wasn't failure, it was preparation. They doubted your potential because they never had the patience to understand it. They doubted your strength because they never had the courage to face their own weakness. They doubted your path because they were terrified of walking a path that required solitude. Doubt was never about you, it was about them. But they projected it on you anyway, hoping you would wear it like a chain. And for a while, maybe you did. Maybe you felt the weight of their judgment pressing on your chest. Maybe their words sank deep enough to bruise something inside you. But bruises aren't permanent, they're reminders of where the healing begins. Because inside that silence, inside that loneliness, inside that invisible struggle, something awakened in you. A version of yourself you were always meant to become. A version that only pain could carve out. A version that only isolation could sharpen. You weren't losing, you were transforming in plain sight, but they weren't paying attention. They thought you were fading away, but you were only shifting into a form they were never prepared to face. You learned to be your own anchor when everyone else let go. You learned to stand alone in moments when anyone else would have fallen apart. You learned to rebuild yourself piece by piece, even when the world was laughing at the rubble. That's the part they never understood. You weren't trying to prove them wrong. You were trying to prove yourself right. But proving yourself right always looks like disappearing to those who don't understand long journeys. Their doubt became a mirror, not one that reflected who you were, but who you refused to become. Every rumor, every whisper, every smirk, every moment they dismissed you became fuel. Not loud, explosive fuel. Slow, burning, patient, cold fuel, the kind that stays inside you until the moment you decide to rise. And when you rise, it's never subtle, it's never quiet, it's never gentle. A comeback is an eruption, and eruptions don't ask for permission. There was a day when you realized something important. Those who bet against you don't actually know you. They only know the version of you that existed before the pain, before the lessons, before the storms that reshaped your soul. They only know the version of you that life had not yet sharpened, and that version is gone. What remains now is someone they cannot predict, cannot measure, cannot understand. The same people who once thought you were finished will soon wonder how they didn't notice your evolution happening right in front of them. Because the truth is simple, people doubt what they fear, and people fear what they cannot control. They couldn't control your spirit, your discipline, your silent hunger for more. So they translated their insecurity into opinions and tried to make you believe them. But if there's one thing you've learned through all this darkness, all this rebuilding, all this quiet suffering, it's that other people's doubt has nothing to do with your destiny. Their judgment doesn't shape your future. Their assumptions don't define your worth. Their disbelief is not a prophecy, it's noise. Meaningless, powerless noise. And one day sooner than they expect, your rise will force them to face the truth they tried so hard to avoid. The truth that you were never weak, you were never broken, you were never done. You were becoming, growing, rising in silence, preparing for a comeback so undeniable that the same people who doubted you will choke on their own disbelief. They will scramble to rewrite their version of your story. but by then it will be too late. Your comeback will stand in front of them like a mirror reflecting the foolishness of every doubt they ever threw at you. And the best part, your comeback won't even be for them. It will be for you, because deep down, you always knew that one day, their doubts wouldn't just be wrong, they would look stupid. They always thought the darkness around you was swallowing you whole, but they never realized you were learning to breathe inside it. While they mocked your silence, you were mastering it. While they mistook your absence as collapse, you were using it to study every fracture in your soul and rebuild it with something indestructible. What they called the end was actually the incubation of a new force, quietly forming behind the scenes. And the irony is, the darkness they believed would consume you became the place where you finally met the version of yourself that they could never destroy. Because in the shadows, away from their noise, you learned the truth. You were never meant to rise in front of them. You were meant to rise above them. You started to understand that real strength isn't loud, flashy, or dramatic. Real strength is built in the quiet moments, when no one is watching, when your lungs are full of doubt, when your knees are shaking, when your voice is trembling, but you whisper to yourself, "Not yet. I'm not done." That whisper became a vow, and that vow became a force strong enough to reshape your entire existence. The world teaches you to chase validation, but your downfall taught you something else. Validation is fragile, unpredictable, and temporary. But transformation is eternal. And while they were waiting to see you break again, you were waiting to see who you would become once the pain finished sculpting you. You didn't escape the darkness quickly. You stayed in it long enough to understand it. You let it strip away every illusion, every weakness, every lie you once told yourself. You let it burn away your fear until all that remained was the raw, unfiltered truth of who you really are. And deep in that truth, you discovered something terrifying for them, not for you. You discovered that their doubt wasn't a weight. It was a trigger. It forced you to grow in ways you never would have if they had believed in you. It forced you to become self-reliant, self-forged, self-defined. They thought their disbelief would break you, but instead it taught you to stop asking for permission to rise. It taught you that the only person you ever needed to believe in you was you. And once that belief took shape, the darkness no longer felt like a prison, it felt like training. There is a moment in every comeback where the pain suddenly starts making sense. A moment where you realize that every betrayal refined you, every insult sharpened you, every disappointment stripped away the weak layers you didn't know you were still carrying. You realized that your fall didn't weaken you, it purified you. It forced you to let go of the people who would never clap for you, the people who only supported you when they felt superior, the people who claimed to care but celebrated when you struggled. Their absence created the clarity you needed. Their silence became the space where your rebirth could take place. You learned that the world is full of people who clap for you as long as you're not soaring too high. People who support you as long as your rise doesn't challenge their mediocrity. People who feel threatened not by your failures, but by your potential. And instead of being bitter about it, you became strategic. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped defending your dreams. You stopped shrinking to make them comfortable. You allowed the distance to grow because you finally understood something sacred. You cannot rise while carrying people who are afraid of heights. The darkest nights of your life taught you how to move differently, how to trust your instincts, how to protect your energy, how to stay quiet about your progress until it becomes undeniable. They thought your silence meant you were lost, but your silence was the birthplace of your discipline. They thought your disappearance meant weakness, but it was the birthplace of your hunger. They thought you were done, but you were only beginning to realize who you could become without the weight of their doubt chained around your neck. And slowly, piece by piece, day after day, you transformed your pain into foundation. You transformed uncertainty into strategy. You transformed every sleepless night into fuel. You began to understand something they never will. Real strength isn't built in front of the world. Real strength is built when no one sees you fighting for breath, but you refuse to fall. Real strength is built in the moments when you feel like breaking, but you choose to bend instead. Real strength is born in the exact places they left you to die. Your evolution wasn't loud, and that's what makes it dangerous. They were waiting for signs, waiting for signals, waiting for indicators that you were getting stronger, but you gave them nothing. You let them stay comfortable in their assumptions while you quietly sharpened the parts of yourself they didn't know existed. You let them underestimate the depth of your endurance, the size of your vision, the intensity of your fire. Because the truth is, your comeback doesn't need their awareness, it needs their doubt. Their disbelief is the perfect camouflage for your transformation. And now, as your strength begins to gather, as your mind becomes clearer, as your spirit becomes heavier with purpose, something inside you begins to shift. A realization so powerful, so cold, so liberating that it changes the way you breathe. You no longer want to prove them wrong. You want to prove yourself right. Your journey has stopped being about them. Their opinions no longer shape you. Their doubt no longer wounds you. Their judgment no longer slows you down. You've reached a point where their noise has turned into background, static, meaningless, irrelevant, forgotten. You don't rise to silence them. You rise because you've outgrown the version of yourself who once needed their understanding. You rise because you've tasted what rock bottom feels like, and now the only direction left is upward. You rise because the darkness has already shown you what you're made of, and it's far stronger than anything they ever imagined. You rise because the world will soon see the truth they refuse to acknowledge. You were never the weak one. You were the one becoming something they could never compete with. There comes a moment in every transformation where the fear begins to shift, not your fear, but theirs. The same people who once dismissed you, who once laughed at your struggle, who once believed you were incapable of rising. Start noticing the quiet changes they were never meant to witness. They notice the new steadiness in your voice, the new certainty in your steps, the strange, unsettling intensity in your eyes, the kind of intensity that only appears in those who have faced the darkest parts of themselves and survived. It is in this stage, this silent unfolding, that the world begins to sense something different about you, something dangerous, something they cannot easily name. But you can name it, because you know exactly what it is. It's the moment when your transformation becomes irreversible. You no longer flinch at the thought of failure, because you've already lived through worse than failure. You no longer fear judgment, because you've seen how meaningless other people's opinions become when you're fighting for your life in the dark. You no longer seek approval, because you've built a version of yourself that doesn't require validation to stand tall. What once hurt you now fuels you. What once broke you now sharpens you. What once silenced you now strengthens your voice in ways you never imagined. The world thought your growth would be visible, predictable, easy to measure. They thought you would rise in small steps, giving them time to adapt to the new you. But evolution born from pain doesn't happen gently, it happens suddenly. One day, you wake up and realize that the person you were is gone, and the person standing in the mirror is someone they never believed you could become. And that's when their fear begins to show. Not openly, not loud, not obvious, but quietly. In their voices, in their hesitation, in the way they look at you for a moment too long. Because deep inside, they sense it. You didn't just survive the darkness, you mastered it. This mastery changes the way you move through the world. You stop reacting to small things. You stop engaging in meaningless battles. You stop explaining your choices to people who never understood the war you were fighting. You become selective with your energy, ruthless with your focus, disciplined with your time. The chaos that once consumed you no longer touches you, because you've built an inner world powerful enough to silence any storm. You've become your own armor, forged from scars, forged from nights you didn't think you would survive, forged from every moment you had to drag yourself forward when no one was watching. That is what they never prepared for your shift from emotional vulnerability to emotional mastery. You no longer crumble when someone doubts you. You no longer break when someone leaves. You no longer shatter when life throws another test in your path. Instead, you stand there steady, grounded, unshakable with a calmness that terrifies those who expected you to remain fragile. They don't understand how someone who fell so hard learned to rise so quietly, so powerfully, so relentlessly. But you understand it. You earned it. You bled for it. And as your strength grows, something else begins to awaken. A vision. Not the old vision, the one shaped by fear, insecurity, and other people's expectations, but a new one carved out of clarity. You see your path with a sharpness you never had before. You know what you want, what you need, and what you will no longer tolerate. Your priorities shift, your values sharpen, your purpose crystallizes. You stop chasing things that were never meant for you. You stop trying to fit into places that were too small for who you were meant to become. You stop trying to convince people to believe in you. You simply move forward with or without them. This is the turning point of your comeback, the moment where everything flips. You are no longer running from your past, you are running toward your future. You are no longer trying to rebuild who you were, you are becoming someone entirely new. You are no longer scared of darkness, you are made of it. And in this new form, you start to notice how small their doubt truly was, how meaningless their judgment truly is, how powerless their words become when faced with someone who has risen from the fire without losing their soul. Because the truth is, no one can stop a person who has walked through hell and learned how to carry flames without burning. You have become that person. You have become the one they underestimated, the one they dismissed, the one they thought would break permanently. And now, with every step you take, you carry the strength of someone who knows they have nothing left to fear. The worst already happened, and you survived it. So what can stop you now? Who can touch you now? What doubt can hold you down now? Their disbelief becomes irrelevant. Their opinions become distant echoes. Their past insults become background noise. You stop living for their recognition and start living for your own evolution. And the more you evolve, the more the world begins to notice. They notice the way you carry yourself, the way you speak, the way you no longer bend under pressure. They notice the way your silence has changed. It's no longer the silence of someone breaking, but the silence of someone planning their rise. Your energy shifts, your presence shifts, your destiny shifts. And suddenly, the same people who doubted your potential start feeling uneasy. They sense something coming, a storm, a shift, a rise they cannot stop, a comeback they cannot rewrite. They sense that the person they once underestimated is now the force they will have to face. And that realization hits them deeply because now they know the truth. You didn't just survive the darkness. You became the darkness they can't stand against. There is a moment in every rise when the world starts to feel smaller, not because you've shrunk, but because you've outgrown the limits that once held you. The places that once felt intimidating now feel too tiny for your ambition. The people who once towered over you now seem small in comparison to the person you've become. And the fears that once controlled you no longer have a voice loud enough to penetrate the quiet, ruthless certainty forming inside your mind. This is the stage where your comeback begins to gather momentum, where your evolution becomes visible even if you say nothing, where the very air around you starts to shift with the weight of who you're becoming. They don't know how to respond to this version of you, the version they never imagined, the version they never prepared for. They were comfortable with the old you, the one who cared too much, apologized too fast, doubted too easily. They liked that version because they could predict it, manipulate it, silence it. But this new you is something entirely different. This new you is carved from nights that almost broke you. This new you carries the quiet confidence of someone who faced themselves in the mirror and didn't look away. This new you carries a heaviness, not the heaviness of pain, but the heaviness of purpose. And purpose changes everything. When purpose enters your bloodstream, hesitation dies. When purpose enters your mind, self-doubt fades. When purpose enters your heart, the opinions of others become background whispers you barely hear. You stop asking, "Am I capable?" and start saying, "No one can stop me now." You stop worrying about how far you have to go and start appreciating how far you've already come. You stop fearing failure because you've realized the only true failure would be returning to the person you were before the fire. This is the point where your inner world becomes stronger than the outer world, where your discipline becomes sharper than your excuses, where your determination becomes louder than your fear. You start waking up with an energy that feels foreign even to you, a drive you can't explain, a hunger you can't turn off. It's not arrogance, it's clarity, the kind of clarity that only comes after you've walked through storms that were designed to destroy you but ended up defining you. People sense this in you, the shift, the transformation, the silent power, and it unsettles them. They don't understand how someone who used to question everything now walks with the certainty of someone who has tasted their own strength. They don't understand how someone who once cracked under pressure now moves with the composure of someone who knows pressure is nothing but fuel. They don't understand how someone they counted out could rise with such force, such conviction, such unstoppable momentum. But you understand it because you've seen the darkness, you've endured the silence, you've survived the breaking, you've felt the world collapse on you and you stood up anyway. And once you survive that, you become untouchable. You begin to realize that your comeback isn't just about rising, it's about reclaiming everything they thought you'd lost. Your confidence, your voice, your purpose, your fire. You begin to understand that every step forward is more than progress. It's a declaration that you are not defined by who you were, but by who you choose to become. Every move you make now carries meaning. Every decision you make now carries power. Every breath you take now carries the weight of someone who knows exactly what they're fighting for. And the world begins to feel it, that pressure, that intensity, that presence that wasn't there before. It's almost magnetic, pulling opportunities toward you, pulling clarity toward you, pulling destiny toward you. But it also pulls something else, attention. People who once ignored you suddenly watch closely. People who once doubted you suddenly want to understand you. People who once avoided you suddenly want to align with you. They see the shift and they feel the energy, but they still don't understand the story behind it, the story written in pain, in silence, in nights where you had every reason to quit but refused. Your rise becomes a mirror, and they don't like what they see. They see their own hesitation where you chose courage, their own excuses where you chose discipline, their own fear where you chose faith. And instead of admitting it, they call you lucky, they call you changed. They call you different, never realizing that the only difference is that you kept going when they stopped. And as your momentum grows, so does your detachment. Not coldness, not cruelty, detachment. You no longer cling to people who don't see your worth. You no longer seek comfort in places that kept you small. You no longer waste energy on battles that don't shape your future. You become intentional with everything, your time, your circle, your choices, your dreams. You walk away not because you're bitter, but because you finally understand that not everyone is meant to witness the rise they prayed you'd never have. This is the stage where your comeback becomes inevitable. You can feel it in your bones, the pressure building, the energy shifting, the transformation reaching its final shape. And deep down, you know that nothing can stop it now. You've come too far, endured too much, sacrificed too deeply to return to who you were. You've crossed the point of no return, and the person you've become in the process is someone even your past self wouldn't recognize. And as the world watches, as the doubters grow uneasy, as the silence begins to crack under the weight of your evolution, you begin to understand the truth behind every dark night, every lonely moment, every painful chapter. Your comeback isn't just going to prove them wrong, it's going to make their doubts look foolish, blind, almost laughable. Because the version of you rising now is the one they never believed existed and the one they can no longer stop. This is it, the moment they never anticipated, the moment that has been quietly brewing while they laughed, while they doubted, while they celebrated your supposed defeat. The final act of a story they thought they controlled, the silence before your roar. And now, standing at the edge of your own evolution, you realize that nothing, no one, and no circumstance can hold you back. Every scar, every sleepless night, every betrayal, every whispered insult, every time they left you to fight alone, it all led to this. Every fragment of pain became a weapon, every shadow of doubt became fuel, every moment of darkness became the stage for your rise. And they don't see it coming, because they never understood that you weren't just surviving, you were strategizing. You weren't just enduring, you were transforming. You weren't just hiding, you were preparing to arrive with a force so precise, so sharp, so undeniable that their disbelief would turn to shock, their laughter would turn to silence, and their doubt would become irrelevant. They assumed your quiet meant weakness, but it meant patience. They assumed your absence meant surrender, but it meant evolution. They assumed you were lost, but you were navigating a path they will never understand. And now you walk forward, fully aware of the power you've accumulated in secret. Every step carries weight, every glance carries intent, every movement carries the kind of energy that can't be ignored. You have become a storm wrapped in calm, a predator cloaked in strategy, a force that doesn't need to announce itself because the impact is unavoidable. they will see you eventually. And when they do, there will be no words to explain the transformation, no excuses to justify their disbelief, no path to escape the reality that they underestimated the one they tried to destroy. You've built walls so strong that nothing can penetrate them, yet you've also built wings that allow you to soar above the petty noise, the shallow opinions, the meaningless judgments. You've become untouchable not because you are invincible, but because you become self-reliant, self-assured, and unshakable. Their doubt, their betrayal, their neglect all pales in comparison to the fire you forged within. And the irony, the people who once believed they had the power to break you will now witness the truth. They never had any control over you at all. They only thought they did. And with every beat of your heart, with every breath that fills your lungs, you reclaim what was always yours. Your power, your voice, your vision, your destiny. You step into the light of your own making, not to please them, not to prove them wrong, but to honor the version of yourself that refused to die under the weight of the world. This is your declaration, your manifesto, your ultimate statement, that the chosen ones, the doubters, the skeptics, the ones who whispered behind your back, they were never the authors of your fate. You were, and now with the full force of your rise, you show them exactly what that means. The comeback is not quiet, it's not subtle, it's not forgiving, it's raw, it's relentless, it's undeniable. Every glance they give you will carry the echo of their disbelief. Every whispered comment about your past will ricochet in the empty space left by your presence. Every hope they had of seeing you falter again will crumble under the reality of what you've become. And when they try to reconcile the person they thought you were with the force standing in front of them, it will be too late. They will realize that all their doubts, all their judgment, all their underestimation, it only made your rise sharper, faster, stronger. You have become the one who cannot be ignored, the one who cannot be questioned, the one who cannot be silenced. The fire that once burned quietly in the shadows is now an inferno in plain sight. And as the world witnesses your return, as the doubters watch helplessly from the sidelines, as the skeptics finally understand that they were wrong, it will be the most satisfying truth of all. You weren't defeated. You weren't broken. You weren't lost. You were becoming unstoppable. Every tear that fell, every night of despair, every moment of isolation, every breath taken under the weight of doubt, it all led to this. And in this final moment, the one who emerges is stronger, wiser, sharper, and colder than they could ever imagine. You don't just rise, you dominate. You don't just win, you transcend. You don't just prove them wrong, you make their doubt look foolish, insignificant, irrelevant. You walk through life now carrying the power of someone who faced everything and refused to surrender. And in doing so, you become the nightmare they never anticipated, the undeniable force born from every trial they thought would destroy you. So step forward, step into your own legend, step into the version of yourself that no one else could create, the version that only pain, silence, patience, and relentless determination could shape. Step into the life that has been waiting for you, the life you've earned through fire, through struggle, through darkness. And know this, the ones who doubted you, the ones who underestimated you, the ones who whispered behind your back, they will remember this moment for the rest of their lives. They will realize that every word of doubt, every look of disbelief, every attempt to diminish you, it was powerless against the force that you have become. The comeback is complete. The rise is undeniable. The chosen one has transformed, and the world has no choice but to witness it. And the most beautiful part, you did it entirely on your own. No validation required. No applause needed. No one to thank or explain to. Just you, fully realized, fully awakened, fully unstoppable. And now, standing at the pinnacle of your own making, you smile quietly because you know that all the doubts, all the disbelief, all the pain, it was all just preparation for the moment when you would show them exactly who you truly are. The world waited for your fall, and you gave them the impossible, your rise.